Wait a minute or two. In the meantime, how's everybody else doing?
Doing pretty good. Ken, you were part of that weekend clam fest. It sounds like.
I think he clammed on Sunday, and I was down on Saturday.
Oh, gotcha.
We didn't. We took a trip to look at a very small, deserted island that there used to be a house on it. Oh, there still is, but it got just destroyed in Hurricane Sandy. And the house sits on a small island. It's the only, it's apparently somebody owned it. You could see its remnants of a very beautiful property. It's currently for sale. But when you look at it, you could see it got just absolutely destroyed from Hurricane Sandy. The windows are knocked out. Half the walls are knocked out. But if you buy it, you got to have a way to to get from mainland there. There's no connection. So apparently you have to have a boat at a marina, and that's the way you get there and back.
Obviously, no cars on the island.
No cars, Paul. Only seagulls. There's like a billion seagulls. So this lady, Kathy, gets me a pair of binoculars, my neighbor there. So, like, I just go chilling there watching the seagulls. I'll tell you, man, you want peace and serenity? Just watch some birds for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's cool. We had binoculars and got as they say, a bird's eye view of the birds. Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about intuition function. And we'll do that tonight and tomorrow night, and then we'll talk about agreement on Wednesday and Thursday night. And that will bring our story to conclusion here. Although I think I think we do have a session scheduled for Friday night. I think that's right, Vanessa, if she's listening, which is a kind of an ask questions session on Friday. But anyway, hey Terry, can you go back to that first slide? The one with the book, the cover of the book on it. Look at the subtitle of the book. We never talk. Hey, take it easy, Doc. We never even talked about that, but yet that subtitle has a lot to do with what we've been talking about. The Office of Shaman, a hermeneutic rationale for the inclusion of a soul concept in the genesis of human thought. I thought a lot about that when I first read the book. First thing I thought about is I haven't the foggiest idea what Worthington's talking about, even in terms of what hermeneutics is. Turns out hermeneutics is like if you study the parts, you can see the whole. There's a kind of a famous picture that you might see hung up in people's offices. I think I first saw it at my first law firm. It's a picture of an elephant with like two guys sitting at one of the feet, two at another two at the third, another two at the fourth, two people at the trunk and two at the tail. And each of them thinks that they're just seeing a part without getting the perspective of seeing the whole. Well, hermeneutics is like that. We've been building kind of a structure, a model, right? Right? A model has parts. You know, you open up the box and you look at all the parts and you're like, oh man, you know, it's like assembling IKEA furniture, at least for me. Estimated assembly time 30 minutes. Takes me often 3 hours, 4 hours, or a whole day.
You and me both.
Yeah, but you know, there are parts which you see then. First, you only see the parts, but then you see the whole. So hermeneutics is like that. But even when I understood a little bit about hermeneutics, I was like, still, what does this subtitle mean? A hermeneutic rationale for the inclusion of the soul concept in the genesis of human thought. And it has, well, it's what we've been talking about. It's like building a model for that includes a soul concept, and in particular, then with that concept, how you then navigate whatever it is that you have to navigate. I navigate my marriage, I navigate being a dad, I navigate having a law firm, I navigate my float center and opening up a new float center and my relationships and things. And, I know the same is true for all of you. Pam's navigating her business and her relationships, and Ralph a restaurant, and the rest of you as well. But let's go back now and take another look at our famous upside down triangle diagram here, because I want to now tie in the subtitle of the book, A Hermeneutic Rationale for the Inclusion of the Soul Concept in the Genesis of Human Thought. Big mouthful, but let's see it more now depicted a little bit graphically. There it is. How many times have we seen this? We've been looking at this now for 30 sessions. Tonight, I think, is session number 30. I think we probably put this up in the first session. We've got this box that has layers of programming in your biocomputer, your mind. But then we've got the soul concept below that. Recognize that? Supra-self metaprograms. Now, here's the, let's see, I want to say conundrum, but, I want to say here's where a model becomes useful. Okay. Think about how you got here. I mean, Ralph and I got together on Saturday. We had some of these conversations about the sheer impossibility of the series of events that led us to meet. Literally, after what hurricane was it? Also Sandy? I forget. Ralph or whoever, or Pam or whoever's in New Jersey or East Coast. Which was the one with the wind that just devastated? Sandy. Sandy was unbelievable. East Coast. It wasn't much of a rain event, but it knocked things down. It did. In the 30 years I've been in Bridgewater, I've never seen anything like that. We lost 10% of our trees, and many of them were on the street. And when I went out the night that Sandy was raging, I was scared. I was scared because I was standing outside, and as I was standing outside, even for just brief moments, all you heard in the background was cracking and trees falling, and it's like, the thought is like, is the house going to hold? Because you can feel it shaking, and the trees were coming down in front of it. And maybe around 2, 3 a.m., it finally died down. My family was on pins and needles. Everybody went to sleep. And then I went out in the morning, like really early, just to survey. Finally, it was light out. And the damage was unbelievable. I had to climb over a dozen trees just to get up my driveway. And when I got up my driveway, a couple of my other neighbors were kind of looking and like, man, how are we ever even going to get out of the neighborhood? The roads were all blocked. And then I see a guy who is pretty much jogging down the street. Ralph. It's the first time that I met Ralph. It's like, the hell's this guy doing out there? And that was the first time that we met. I happened to be out there, and Ralph has his own story. He spent the night literally a mile from his house because he couldn't make the last mile because the trees were down. Then when it was safe in the morning, he set his sights on going home and happened to pass my house at the exact time that I was outside. So, those kinds of events, um, are part of our experience as humans, those, impossible or seemingly impossible or improbable kinds of things that bring us together. But think about too, for all of you that are listening, like, why are you here? Like, what brought you here? What are you doing here even? Like, what do you hope to get? And, questions that you're not going to be able to answer tonight, but the point of raising them is not to have an answer as much as it is to point to you at the soul concept, at the supra self weighing down on you, in the sense of well, trying to express through you. I think I could also say that as expressing through you, but yet how's that expression work? Take a look at our upside down triangle. Doesn't it necessarily have to go through all of those striations, all of those layers, all of the programming, all the things we've been talking about? Hasn't what we really been talking about is the first part of the book a way to pick up some tools or use some tools so that you can clear the pathway for that expression? And hasn't the second part of the book been like, all right, now that we've talked about the tools, let's talk about structurally how you can utilize this map, this model. That's what this is about. So I am posing the question of all you souls out there, a hermeneutic rationale for the inclusion of the soul concept in the genesis of human thought does present a serious question in my mind. And that question is, damn, if that's really pressing down on me, since I have these experiences, how do I navigate through that? Literally, how? Or how do I even know that the things I think are, thoughts that are coming from some other part of me are actually thoughts coming from some other part of me and not just wishful thinking? Like the story I told of my daughter who sat at the kitchen table and said to me and Maria that she was Cleopatra or a queen in a prior life. She may have been. My wife and I have not come to the definitive conclusion on that issue yet. But she may also be a brat. She may also not want to look at that. And therein lies that horns of the issue thing that I'm kind of raising, because the model that we're having, if this is, take this as a part of your life, or don't, or find out for yourself. But for me, it became an issue of navigating business as well as a marriage, as well as being a dad, as well as being a friend. And so, the question is, all right, soul or other or whatever you want to call it, bearing down on me, how do I follow those instructions to be a better dad or a better lawyer or a better friend? How do I do that? That's where intuition function comes in here. Let's switch over to the playing field so we can see where we are here in our model, our practical, navigable model of getting through life or getting through relationships. All right, so straight up, I first saw this when I was at a harmony class in Mexico about 8-10 years ago. I looked at it. John had put it up on a bulletin board. It meant absolutely nothing. Zero, zippo, nothing to me. I thought to myself, I don't know, maybe, the hell's that? But then again, when I first read the Office of Shaman, which was even before that class, it didn't mean much to me. But it, you'll have to either take my word for it or, not, find out for yourself that it is a model. That's what we're doing. That's what this is about. It's a structure of an abstraction to navigate. And here we are tonight talking about intuition function. We're still on the right side. We're on the bottom part of the playing field. And intuition has to do with, those things that, those thoughts that come to us. Thoughts like, what the hell is this dude doing jogging up and down a street? Or, it's 6 a.m. Where the hell's he coming from? And what does that mean? Or why, did I run into this person at that time, or meet that person, or that event happen?
It reminds me of, all right, you were talking to that guy Dave this weekend, and poof, you knew him from somewhere else in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and somehow this guy needs, I wouldn't be surprised if the next time I see him, he's asking me about what does Ken do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It shows up at your house. And I had met him at a bar one night. He was at a bar, and I remembered him because it was a tiki bar, and he was very untiki-like. So was I. We were the most untiki-like people there. Like business suits. Everybody was like, younger. Who's this guy? It's like, yeah, it's Dave. Go figure. But what do you do with that? What do you do with it as you think about the tools that we've been covering up to this point? Because these things that you can call flashes of insight, maybe they're flashes of insight, or maybe they're just, hey, Dad, I must have been Cleopatra in a prior life. I've had a lot of Cleopatras come through this float center. I'm sitting, I probably had 10. I've had lots of people say lots of interesting things. And I can't really say one way or the other whether those things they say, which are often things that are, let's just say, outside the body, are actually things, that are going on, or whether they're more of, hey, Dad, I must have been a queen in a prior life. Because to separate between the two of those, you got to pay attention to what we've been talking about for the last 30 days.
Ken, do you think you could turn on Pam's mic, please?
I think I can do this, Jenny. This is something I have an aptitude for. There we go. Pamela.
So I just wanted to say that this is not a simple fix. You have to do the work. You have to want to get intuitive. You have to want to know how to use these tools. You have to ask those questions so you could improve your life. I mean, I don't think that I don't think this is going to attract people who aren't prepared to really delve into who they are, and and go into all the different, you want to get deep into your theta delta brain waves to be able to start the process. So understanding this, you're looking at the chart and you're going, oh, what the heck, like none of this would make any sense when you're first starting out, but as you go along, it makes more and more sense. And then the 3D version of this is awesome, and that makes even more sense. So yeah, this is not for the faint of heart.
Anybody else? Anybody else want to chime in on what Pam's talking about here? Facilitator.
I don't want to be talking too much, Ken, but
Right.
like, all right. So she's talking about this model. Now I know it's not for the faint of hearted, But when you look at it for yourself, this model, you know, you got to be like what John's saying. You got to be fucking real honest with yourself, brutal honesty, you know? And then if you can do that, you can kind of get yourself in the I do harmony triangle. But let's say you don't even get in there. You just learn the model. I think what it starts doing is helping you observe what's going on in other people as well, even if you don't want to admit yet what's going on to yourself, okay? But like, I'll give you an example. Today, I had a guy, actually happened on Saturday. He basically wanted $1 raise or he quits. So this guy's been with me for like 5 years, and that's his MO. I need $1 or I'm gone. So and he's done this before, and I've always kind of figured it out with him however way I went about it. But now, Ken, knowing the model, what I decided to bring up to him is not the fact that he needed the $1 raise, but why he's using the threat of quitting as his action for getting something he wants. Like, you know, you're angry at something. And I tried to explain to him in Spanish, meanwhile. You know, I'm trying to explain to this guy, like, your threat, like, the job is not your threat. Something else is making you angry. Like, your communication that you need to tell us that you need to make $1 more an hour, and the reasons are because, you know, you work hard and all this stuff, I was like, are coming in unclear. You're using this way. So somehow, Ken, using your model, trying to explain to this guy what his thoughts are, I know started to hit home. Because at the end, he was correct in getting the $1 raise, but I really felt like I captured his attention, and he understood today, moving forward, that, hey, you know what? Not only if I want something from this job, you know, I got to be in this fashion, but if I want something in life. Now, this is what I wonder. After this conversation with this guy, if I could explain, I bet you if I could start telling him about a model like we've learned, he'd be into it because he falls into it. You know what I mean? Like, I was able to see where his shortcomings were. I was able to kind of bring it out. He moved his assemblage point in this conversation. He recognized, hey, you know what? Holy shit. This guy recognized that, you know, this action I'm taking, I'm doing it because of this, and I shouldn't. I bet you this guy would be really interested in knowing how I know that. That's similar to like that's my allure, like when I hear John.
Ralph, maybe you need to take a breath about that one, because I've been doing this for a while, and just because somebody gets it one time is no sign that they're ever going to get anything else.
Yes, I second that.
I mean, the thing is you have to wait and see, right? If the guy comes back and talks to you, well, now you got something. If he just ignores what you said and doesn't say anything else about it, you don't have anything. You can go.
You're right.
You can go check with him a few times to see if he's there, but you know he's got to show some interest. If he doesn't show any interest, that's the end of it. He's interested in that money, that's for sure. I mean, you use that correctly. You stalked him properly by saying, okay, look, you want your money. I'm not arguing with you about your money. What I'm arguing with you about is the way you're going about it here, dude. This is not a way to behave. And he understood that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's a huge lesson that may reach back all the way to his childhood. I mean, it may take him 10 years to rewrite that completely.
Yeah.
It may affect what he does going forward and what other people he knows do going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know how much of an impact that you have, and so rather than deciding on that, what I found is easier is to just wait and see. If you had the impact, you'll see it.
Yeah, I received a different attention today. Again, this guy's been with me for 5 years. You know, this is the fourth or fifth time he's asked for 50 cents or $1. But it's like I've never had a chance to connect with him in this fashion this time. And I'm telling you, as we were talking, it wasn't just about him getting the $1. It really turned into about him trying to like learn something about himself. So the conversation went in a great way. Now, my Spanish is limited. I had my, the chef who's kind of translating with me. But again, people,
be careful. Be careful of that. I've spent lots of years with people talking behind my back in front of my face. Okay. In fact, that's the reason why I started learning Spanish, is because of how it got translated. Because what the cook said and what you said weren't the same thing.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Although my Spanish is pretty good. It's not terrible.
Yeah, I'm with. Me too. I got it. But if I got to get somebody to translate for me, they can't actually, because
Yeah.
I'm talking about stuff that they've not thought about either.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it for what it's worth. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
I have you met Ralph? I don't think you met the college kids I have working here this summer.
No, I didn't meet anybody there.
Yeah, they've been here for a few weeks now. They'll be here for a few more weeks or till late August or early September, and then they'll either maybe hang out a little more, depending on whether their schools, they're both out-of-state schools, whether they actually go back to their out-of-state schools or whether their out-of-state schools do distance learning. So that's up in the air for a lot of college kids now. But for the time, what I used to do with everybody here is I would insist that they take the intro to the art of rewriting class. And you know what? It's important. Not only important, it's essential working in a float center. But that's another story. There's a lot of things that are essential in working in a float center, including floating. But I know too from past patterns of experience that I couldn't always tell what people's intentions were or why they were here. I would insist they do things. I would do more insisting and less watching what they did on their own. So with my two new clerks or interns, I do a lot more watching. One of them has migraine headaches from her life, and I talked to her today about stress and where that comes from, or where she thinks it comes from, and how she looks at herself as a person. We had, we've been speaking for for a bunch of time on this. Same with the other person that works here, but but on other kinds of issues that I can see weigh heavily on him in terms of how he gets along. But like John's talking about, I don't know, so I want to watch to see what they do and figure out, because I'm going to tell a lot more from what someone does than what someone says. I think that's a part of what John's talking about, if not the substance of it. It's interesting. It's different. It's stalking. And it's another way of going about things, that is different than any way I've gone about it in the past. Because I can, I can find out more about what people, why they're here. And that's an interesting question, right? Because if I find out why they're here, then I'm using the tools we talk about and the functions we've talked about, and I can guide that intuition. Because how do I even know that it's intuition if I'm not, paying attention to the things we've been talking about up to this point? Let me be a little more specific about that. What's the tool for the intuition function? What tool, what thing can you do that releases the energy governed by intuition function? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? What is it? The answer's right up there on the screen. So why? I'm glad you asked. It's direct knowing. And what the hell? How does direct knowing have to do with intuition function? Well, if I know, if I take an inventory of what I know, then I have a way of separating the landscape from whether I was a queen in a prior life or just a bitch. Because both those things can be possible. You know?
Can, can, could I do a little trick here?
Go ahead.
You know this one really well, but for those of you who need to understand what Ken's talking about here, how many of you have ever seen a black and white cat? I dare say that would probably be everybody right away, and everybody knew that, right? And how many of you have seen a green cat with yellow and purple polka dots? Nobody has seen one of those? And how long did it take for you to figure that out? So you know what you know and you know what you don't know? Okay.
Yeah. So how why is that important to intuition function? I ask, or they ask John Worthington.
Well, I thought that they would probably be asking Ken Kaplan.
Okay, I'll take that. Maybe everybody's mic is turned off. Let's see. Who's around here? Oh, I see Paul and Jenny and Elise and Vanessa. Terry's on. Any of you folks with prior experience want to come on and chat for a bit?
Well, wouldn't we just directly know the difference between the black and white cat being a real thing and the purple and yellow cat not being anything that's real? Wouldn't that be a direct knowing? You didn't have to think about it. It was right there.
Yep. So what does that have to do with intuition function?
Well, you intuit it. You know that you don't have to think about it. It's something that's right there. It's a part of you.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd say that example is an example of intuition function as much as an example of me knowing territory, dividing point between thoughts in my head and the ones that, damn, shit's just showing up. Why is this person here? That is just a remarkable coincidence that I ended up at the kitchen table of Elise Comiskey's house in Chester, New Jersey. Of all places, Elise, can you believe it?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
But didn't you have a sense that you belong there, that was part of what you were trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would you have shown up?
Yep.
I mean, you could have just as easily heard about tanks and never, and just blew it off and said, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, as I think about it from a logical point of view, from a logical point of view, you know, the words that were used, I'll call it, you know, which, you know, we're not, when I think back of them, especially alluring or interesting, that I would go to some woman's house in Chester and go into her basement and float in a tank. No offense, Elise.
No, I have no illusions about that, Ken. I have no problem with that at all. There was something in Ken Kaplan that said, I think I'm going to see what this is about.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, one of the things when I got together with Ralph this weekend is he asked me, as he's prone to ask, kind of a question along the lines of, it wasn't, what are you doing? Where, or maybe it was more like, how'd you get here? And the forces at work, if I can call it that, are, equally as unexplainable as showing up at your float center.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. But it does raise a question, which is very pertinent and practical to anyone running a business or anything. Going back to what I said in the beginning, if you use the model, or if you consider the other that some part of you is expressing on you, how the hell do you navigate if you don't deal with what you know and what you don't know, as John said, or what's real and what's Memorex, and whether you were a queen in a prior life or just a bitch. These are this is something that business people face all the time. It gets to the question of where Pam's going with her business, where Patrick's going with his business, what Ralph's going to do with his restaurants, where my float center goes. If those flashes, which is the hermeneutic rationale for the inclusion of the soul concept in the genesis of human thought as in origin, right? All right, we're going to have a concept of a soul, the soul concept as being a genesis, an origin point, something weighing down on us. It raises the very real business practical consideration is, all right.
Maybe even a start point.
Start point.
See, you have to have a, this is why the Big Bang thing is so important, right? Because it's a start point.
Mm-hmm.
And in our English semantics, we absolutely must have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, that's true.
So we have to have a start point for us to quote unquote understand anything.
Yeah.
So if you say, all right, you had to begin with some kind of an awareness. What would that awareness focused you from the time that you were born, maybe before.
Mm-hmm.
But that awareness certainly did focus you.
Mhm.
So let's just say that's another part of humanity, of who we are as peoples. And if we said that, we could say, well, that's the other. And that way you get out of all the soul stuff and so forth. You say, okay, well, there's this other part of me that has guided me all through my life. I don't understand what it is. I don't understand how it works or anything, but I know that it's there and know that it guides me. Well, in fact, that's where I started to think from that guidance. Okay, if you can accept that as if it may be true, then that gives you a start point that you can calculate your life and your life trajectory from.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Now,
makes
that's the rationale.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: if that entity exists, then how does it express? Well, rather than that, here's the problem with that: is that entity obviously does not have a body any more than we have a soul, or we have whatever you want to call that. They are interconnected, but ne'er the twain shall meet. And so that entity doesn't understand about emotions and physical movements and that kind of thing. It can't understand that. So it expresses, rather than with emotional outbursts as we do, it expresses through functions. And that's the idea that you have to consider, that the B1 function is a spiritual concept expressing through us all the way into work. It's what gives our work value and quality. It's what gives harmony, beauty. It's what anything that you do has quality or has craftsmanship or what have you. And the reason why you do that is for a specific function, and you use how you think about that, your natural mind function, to accomplish those things, and you're empathetic of the needs of your clients, and you're intuitive about what it is that you're going to do.
What I'm going
All
to
of
do.
those, all of those functions are expressions of something that is outside of the body. And if you thought about it from that perspective, if you just made that division, you say, okay, let's think about it as though it's true that there's these functions, and if I do this program, then this function will govern the energy that I release. Okay,
Yep.
it's rather like okay, I have this, I've released this function called, I've released this energy called water. The hose has a function of directing that water so that it doesn't run out on the ground from here to over there. So the hose has a B1 function with the water, right?
Yep.
Okay, so it has a harmony function, it has a do function, it has a specific function, natural mind, Those are the things that we're trying to understand here, and the one that you're wrestling with here tonight is intuition function, and that really isn't so much about, let's say, being aware that of the future as it is intuiting what this function is going to do, what this function is going to accomplish. Perhaps better said is to how to take advantage of this.
Take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That thing, that whatever.
Those functions, yeah.
Yeah. What do I do with that? Yep. That makes sense. Functionality in our model.
Well, if it's not functional, I don't see the practicality of it. And us farm boys, we got to see the practicality of shit. Or if we don't, we just don't. We're not into the new paint or nothing.
Yeah.
The idea here is that this is a practical way of considering how to take advantage of that other part of our thinking machinery that generations of people have referred to as the soul. And if we don't call it the soul, we call it that other part of us. Just refer to it like that in our own thinking. We don't have to carry all the weight of what that means religiously or spiritually or any of those things. Because I don't care if that entity is nothing more than a standing wave around us, or it's something that having to do with the electrical field or the energy field around the human body. That's fine with me, however it is, but it has a function, and that's the thing that I'm concerned with is to take advantage of the function.
Yep. Yeah, me too. Makes sense. Who knows? Who cares what it is or what line? I mean, really, but it comes down to, all right, thank you very much. How do I use this?
Right.
Get along with this.
Well, that's what this series is supposedly about, and in fact, that's the reason why I do other classes here, so that people can start getting glimpses of how I interact with this myself, because this isn't a game for me. It's not a board game or anything. This is something I do every day, all the time.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay. Who else wants to come out to play tonight?
You don't get volunteers for shit like this, kid.
Yeah. But
So that intuition function is supposed to be moving on in there.
Paul, you around?
Hey, Ken.
How you doing?
Enjoying the conversation so far.
You are the creator of taking this dimensionality thing and moving it into a three-dimensional model that
Yeah, I responded to a couple of things that I think John said one night, and I was like, huh. Stacking these things in 3 dimensions, I was like, I don't even know what the hell that means. So I started to tinker with it a little bit. Now I'm not in front of my regular computer, or I bring up my
maybe
my movable model.
maybe later in the week when you
we can do that, definitely. I know we've got a couple of static shots of it, but if those pop up, maybe we can talk about those. But yeah, this whole
go ahead. Yeah, I have a feeling you're going to say the same thing, Matt, that I'm going to ask. So I'll ask it in terms of functionality, in terms of like, you're not running a float center, but you're running a business. And I've heard you talk about using this model in navigating your business and a whole host of things that you encounter, employee issues, customer issues, where you guys are going, getting along.
Yeah, absolutely. With direct knowing in play, you guys have been talking a lot about the difference between what you know and what you don't know. And the example that John gave is very illustrative. But the funny part is, I think I missed the real value in the conversation about what I knew and what I didn't know for a good 2, maybe 3 years that we were working on this material.
Say more.
And yeah, I will say a little more about that. We're not very discerning in our own minds about the difference between what we know and what we don't know. By way of example, Elise said, well, a cat that's, yellow and green or whatever, that doesn't exist. Now, I can only say that I've never seen one.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know that doesn't exist? There's a difference.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, semantics, but semantics are important when it comes to being precise with what you're saying and what you're thinking. And if you're sloppy, you don't have a chance of being able to sort out what you know from what you don't. So once I started to get a handle on what that idea meant, a whole lot of possibilities started to open up for me. And with regards to the intuition function and direct knowing, I started to see you said the line between what I know. I saw where that line stopped. And then there was all this space past that. And the intuition function comes into play on top of all the other tools and functions. And what starts to happen is it's like the idea or the understanding blossoms in your mind from a place that you're not even paying attention to. And it includes everything from the widest possible perspective. And you simply understand and you know what's going to make the difference in that situation.
Yeah.
So sometimes I run into this on a technical level at work where we're trying to figure out why something's not working for a client. but more often than not, it's an organizational, communicational, or relationship oriented challenge that I'm dealing with. And I suddenly realize what needs to be said, or what needs to be pushed on, or what needs to be talked about to move the needle
Yeah.
for the person on the other side of the table.
Yeah, that's the point that John was pushing on in that intuition. It's not just that flash or that insight or that you intuited something, but then taking that and applying it.
Right. Just recognizing what it is not enough at
Yeah.
this level. You
Yeah.
have to actually act on it.
Yeah. I would say that acting always, I'd say this, necessarily comes in the form of communication.
Always.
Because that's where the difference is going to be made, like Ralph was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep, it is.
Deal. Anything else you got, Paul, that you want to say?
I don't know. That's what came to mind when we started talking.
Any questions out there? You with Ralph and Pam?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm good.
You good? Okay. That's good. How about you, Pamela?
Yeah, I'm totally there.
Yeah, I agree with what you say about work. You know, I do. You know, I see that in everything. You know, and I see that if you're going to be an expert in the law, guess what? You went to law school. You got out of law school 3 years. You worked hard in law school. Now you precisely know nothing. Now figure out how to become a lawyer over the next
Right.
10 years before you start to accumulate those hours that they talk about being an expert. I don't know if there's any truth to the 10,000 hours, but it's a fair kind of representation of what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
John had talked in the past about that Netflix series about Michael Jordan, which I just started to watch. I was watching it last night.
What's it called?
Uh, Last Dance, maybe. It's about their final season. The Bulls went from nothing pre-Jordan, and then Michael Jordan came, and then they developed a kind of a dynasty, and the story goes back and forth in time, but mainly deals with the last season. I think they all played together, and the amount of work and effort that he put in, and the demands that he made on his team to meet him at that place.
Well, so who was their coach at the time?
Their coach at the time was Phil Jackson.
Exactly. So I don't know if you've ever read Phil Jackson's book.
I have. That's a good read, Pam.
Yeah, no, that guy also helped raise the level of the whole team. He was a very spiritual, very, very aware human being, and he was an amazing. The whole thing is a tsunami, because with him being the coach and then taking on Michael Jordan, the whole thing was all the stars lined up.
Yep. Well, I got through episode 1.5, so I'm gonna keep watching.
Mm-hmm.
Recommended. Well,
I saw it. I want to watch that too.
yeah, it's good. You find it on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that too.
So, any other questions? We're gonna pick up again with intuition function tomorrow night.
All right, see you then.
See you all then.
Good night, Ken.
Night.
Night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Good night.